Right, so as we continue on through chapter 3, we're going to talk about reproductive systems today. We're going to start with the female reproductive system. And you have a diagram in your notes, and these are blanked out. So hopefully it might be a little tight, so you might not be able to fit the whole word in the blank. I'm just noticing that it's a bit small, so you'll have to write small or just write outside the blank there. So this is a picture of, obviously, internally for a female. It's the reproductive system. These are the things we're going to be talking about here today and as we move through the next few lessons. So I'll start up at the top left here. This is called the fallopian tube, and you remember we mentioned that yesterday in our bingo game. All of these we mentioned. Fallopian tube. So this is the tube on either side here that kind of wraps around like this. The ovary is what the fallopian tube connects to, the ovary. And remember, that's the female gonad. That's the reproductive sort of center here that is going to be producing the gametes for reproduction. The uterus is this area in here, the uterus. Okay, that's the uterus in here. Endometrium is the lining of the uterus. Endometrium is the lining of the uterus in here. The cervix. Okay, this lower area part is the cervix. It is separate from the uterus. It's sort of the boundary between the uterus and the vagina here, this canal here. So this is where everything is placed, the words we talked about yesterday. So this is sort of the technical diagram of where things are, and as we'll be moving through this. So you will have to be able to label this diagram. So you want to study the parts, not too many here, whatever, 2, 4, 6. 6 parts in this diagram, you'll have to label those. All right. The ovaries. Let's talk about the ovaries first, and you should have some blanks in your notes that you can fill in. And the ovaries contain hundreds of thousands of eggs. Okay, so inside the ovaries is where the egg production is and where the eggs are contained and where they come from. A female produces all of these eggs. This might be something new for you to know, before she is even born. So the eggs are produced, as if you're a female, the eggs are produced as you're developing. That's kind of cool. Not a continual process of creation, really. So the eggs are all contained in the ovary there. The ovaries produce the female sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. So we talked about those as well. All right. Now you're not gonna have to study too closely here this diagram at all, but I guess this would be inside the ovary here. So these are some of the parts here inside the ovary. It's pretty complex. Blood vessels obviously coming in, and again, you won't have to memorize these at all, but this is parts of the ovary. Any questions? So hormones are being produced. In the ovary, but the eggs are just there and are being released. All right, the fallopian tube. So from the ovary, it's connecting to the fallopian tube. This is a tube with tiny hair-like structures that guide the egg that is released from the ovary, that guides the egg through the uterus, through to the uterus. So a tube with tiny hair-like structures that guide the egg through to the uterus. Okay? So remember, here's the destination here into the uterus in here. Unless the egg is fertilized, the egg will die after 24 to 48 hours. So unless the egg is fertilized, the egg will die. Okay? And of course, fertilization, right? We're talking about fertilization when the male gamete and the female gametes unite. So this is a fertilized egg that will then be developed into a human. Okay. So if there is no fertilization, the egg just dies, and of course we're going to talk about the monthly menstruation period where these eggs and the different things kind of get flushed out, but that's coming up later. Okay. So egg is released from the ovary, it's guided down the fallopian tube where it's waiting to be fertilized, and then if it gets to the uterus and it's not fertilized, then it's going to be, and it dies. All right, any questions? All right, well, let's get into the uterus then. Okay, The uterus, hollow pear-shaped organ, with muscular walls to develop, to protect, a developing baby. So as far as your blanks there, muscular is the word you want to put in there. So it's a hollow pear-shaped organ right here with muscular walls to protect a developing baby. So as we've seen so far, the ovary releases an egg. It comes down the fallopian tube, waiting to be fertilized. And if it's fertilized, this would be the place where the baby grows, okay, in the uterus, also called the womb, right? If you're reading some old biblical text or some older songs. Actually, I'm not sure any songs include womb. Anyways, womb, I guess that would be the place, okay? Right, you guys are all being very studious today. This is good. Okay. All right. The endometrium. What is the endometrium? It is the lining of the uterus, the lining. So as we mentioned before, inside this uterus, there is a lining called the endometrium. And of course, this is cross-section, right? It's not open like this, but just so we can see in, obviously, with this diagram. But here's a little bit of a close-up of the endometrium. So during a woman's menstrual cycle, the endometrium thickens and then sheds. Okay? So we have this lining that is thickening. So it's kind of getting ready to allow a fertilized egg to implant and to grow. And then if nothing happens, then the lining is shed, and that's a woman's menstrual cycle, the period. Okay. Endometrium. All right, the cervix. What is the cervix? Well, the cervix connects the uterus to the vagina. So we have the ovary, we have the fallopian tube, we have the uterus, and we have the cervix. Okay, so there's some pictures that I don't think you have all of these pictures in your notes. You have mostly. Well, you have the first one. Yeah, no, you don't have these pictures in your notes. Just to kind of, I guess, trim down the size of the notes package that I've so kindly photocopied for you. You're welcome. Thank you. So notice here's the cervix. So when there's a baby in the uterus or the womb, okay, when the period of birth draws near, this cervix thins out, and it gets very, very thin and separates and allows for the baby to pass through. So you don't want fluid or the baby just kind of accidentally kind of coming out, before it's ready. So there's a bit of a protection there, thankfully. Yeah. Well, yeah. So this, when the time draws near, then the cervix kind of thins out and yeah, ready to go. Okay. So blanks. Did you get all the blanks there? Oh, yes. Dilates. So here we go. The cervix dilates and opens during labor. So when the baby's ready to come out, thankfully there's like basically like a gate that opens up. Nice. Okay. So we don't want the baby dropping out there before it's ready. Just like in the floor. That would kind of not be fun. You're right. Yes, that's a good assessment of what that would be like. It would not be fun. Okay, so let's just talk about a few more things on this diagram here. Okay, not effaced, no dilation. So dilation means opening. So if there's no opening, then there's no dilation. Fully effaced, I guess, would be the description of how thin the cervix, or the cervix is here, so thin. 1 centimeter dilated. So there's actually, when the baby's head presses on the cervix to kind of thin it out, obviously there's blood moves this way and that way and thins out. And being dilated means that there's actually an opening there. So that's measured in centimeters, and that sort of indicates how close to birth the baby would be. So during labor, a woman would be dilating more and more. And so then the baby's ready to come out. fully dilated would be considered around 10 centimeters. And how do you know this? Yes, the obstetrician, the doctor, has to go in and feel how dilated the woman is to know. That would be a little uncomfortable. Yes, that would be uncomfortable. Not to mention the uncomfortable that's coming, for sure. But yeah. Okay. Any questions? Good. No questions. Good. Sorry. What? How does the baby breathe? The baby does not breathe. The baby is alive, but the baby's not breathing. Breathing would require your lungs to inhale air, not a lot of air, inside the uterus before it's born. Well, how? Okay, it's a good question. A good question. The baby's not breathing during pregnancy.
So it's just dead?
No, it's not dead. Not breathing does not equal dead. No, not breathing does not equal dead. If we, can I talk? If we, who need air to live, stop breathing for a certain amount of time, then we don't have the necessary ingredients for life. Okay? But from when a baby is developing in the womb, there's no air in there. The baby's not breathing. The baby is developing lungs, getting ready to breathe. So the baby doesn't breathe until it comes out. The baby is born, then there's air, then all these fluids to be ejected, and the baby then starts breathing air. So it coughs and spits and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, a lot of times the doctors, I've been there 4 times. The doctors are basically sucking out all the fluid from. They stick this little turkey baster up into the baby's nostrils, and they suck out all the fluid and stuff like that, and in the mouth, and I guess it used to be they give the babies a big slap on the butt, yeah, so that they would go, and then taking a big breath of air, and then start breathing, yeah. Okay, good questions, and no, air does not come through the umbilical cord to the baby. Air is breathed after it's born. But that's a good question. That's a good question. Fair thought. Okay, the vagina. Here we go. The vagina. A long muscular tube. Let's see, your blanks are going to be a long muscular tube that leads to the outside of the body. All right, so obviously we're internal. Through the vagina is the outside of the body. Also called the birth canal. Also called the birth canal, since the baby leaves the uterus through the vagina. Okay? So in case any of you were not understanding sort of where the baby comes out through the vagina. All right? Does not come out any other orifice, through the vagina right there, okay? So it's all connected. Birth canal. Any questions? Okay, good. All right, well, let's move on. Okay. Secondary sexual characteristics. Female. Okay. Induced by increased estrogen and progesterone hormone levels. So remember, hormones are what the body starts producing when it's time to fully develop the sexual organs and getting you ready to be able to reproduce. Okay, so these hormones in women produce pubic hair, widened pelvis, enlarged mammary tissue or breasts, and the menstrual cycle begins. So again, we talked about puberty, right? This is where a young girl becomes a woman, and all of these things mature, and there are some obvious side effects from the production of these hormones throughout the body. Okay, so there you go. Secondary sexual characteristics, female. Now, this obviously these will be manifested to varying degrees, and yeah. So not every woman looks like this silhouette here, but generally there are some things that differentiate through secondary sex characteristics. Good. Any other questions?
Nope, no questions.
All right. Let's talk about this here. Progression. Shh. Turn around, please. Hey. Progression from ovulation to birth. So we talked a little bit about this. Let's get into this a little bit more. Ovum formation, okay? Here's the diagram we're going to be looking at. So just before you fill anything out here, ovary, okay? Spits out an egg here. Starts to go down or up the fallopian tube. I don't know, up, down. What do you say? Down the fallopian tube. Okay. So fertilized egg. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but the egg does not get fertilized by the male sperm in the uterus. It gets fertilized here in the fallopian tube. Fertilization. Okay. Egg comes out right away. So the sperm from the male, which we'll talk about this, the sperm from the male has to, and actually it's pretty cool how this is designed, but the sperm, the male gametes, actually have a flagellum, which is like a little tail that flips and spins, and so literally the sperm kind of looks like it's like swimming or like powered by this whirling tail, and it actually propels itself up the fallopian tube, down, up the fallopian tube to get to the egg, okay? And then fertilization happens here in this, right around here. And then as the cells start dividing and the baby starts growing, at very initial stages, starts to multiply and that sort of thing. And then it looks like about day 4 here is when it sort of enters the uterus, and then it starts embedding here and kind of getting seated, planted, where it's going to continue to grow for the next number of months. Cool, hey? That's pretty cool. Pretty neat. Ovum formation. All right. Meiosis, as you recall, remember mitosis and meiosis? Meiosis forms the egg, or the ova. That's the fancy scientific term for it. So meiosis, I think that's your blank there, forms the eggs. 1 egg per month is matured and released from the ovaries. 1 egg per month is matured and released from the ovaries. So ovary kicks out an egg, and then it's waiting for fertilization here. Not waiting too long, it's kind of heading down there. It's kind of like there's music playing and the egg is running towards the sperm in the romantic scene. Slow motion. They embrace.
In the rain.
And then the credits roll.
In the blood.
In the rain.
In
Yes.
the blood cells.
Those white blood cells just be falling.
Yeah, it's pretty romantic, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay. Eggs travel to the fallopian tube where they may be fertilized. Okay, so hopefully you get the picture, right? We got the barn here with all the eggs, okay? And then the eggs kind of roll out of the barn, waiting to get fertilized. Then they continue on and go over here and implant in the endometrium. That's where they're going to chill for the next 9 months or so. Yeah? Fertilization of the egg. Let's talk about that. It's actually a pretty cool picture right there. Looks like the egg is being attacked. It does look scary. It looks like it's some kind of alien attack on a planet that is unwelcoming the attack.
Like episode 1 of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars. Yes, if there was a scene of some planet being invaded by spaceships that looked like sperm, I would probably turn it off
I would never
right
watch
away.
Star Wars
That would
again.
probably be inappropriate.
I would be scarred.
These,
If I go to the movie theater and see
this scientific fiction, all right. Oh boy, the grade 9 scientific fiction movie.
sperm attack
Sci-fi.
on planet
Yeah,
Earth,
yeah. The attack of the
Revenge of the Sperm.
Revenge of the Sperm on Planet Egg. Yes.
That was Noah's
Yeah. We could call it Planet Ova. Okay.
Yeah, we know that, Gabby.
attack on the egg.
Where were we? Okay.
The last sperm.
Notes. Blanks. For an egg to be fertilized.
Darth sperm.
Okay, that's enough now. For egg to be fertilized, sperm from a male has to be deposited into the vagina of a female. There you go. So remember, the eggs are produced in the ovaries. They get kicked out and start rolling down the fallopian tube. All right? And then billions of happy sperm try and find the egg. It's like a little hide and seek kind of thing. And here they are. They finally found the egg. All right. One sperm cells.
Last man standing.
That's probably supposed to be one sperm cell. Once, not one. Once sperm cells enter a woman's body, they are propelled by their flagella. So that's kind of the little tails that whirl about and propel these little missiles there down the fallopian tube in search of the hiding egg. Yeah.
It's like, what's his name? Jack and the Beanstalk or something.
What?
Jack and the Beanstalk?
How is that?
How does that apply at all to the, I don't know.
Like the
What?
golden chicken egg?
I don't know what you're thinking
The
about.
golden
Beanstalk?
egg. he means.
Okay. I'm not sure how Jack and the Beanstalk got into this one.
Yeah, Jack and the Beanstalk is good.
Okay.
I said that, Jack and the Beanstalk.
Let's leave Jack and the Beanstalk out of this.
Jack and the Beanstone? Did you say?
That's
Yeah, it's Beanstalk, not Beanstone.
golden egg. So that's for
All right, let's bring it back. Fertilization of the egg. Oh, wait.
it makes sense.
It looks like. Wait a minute. Okay.
What? Did you get
No, I thought there was a line that's missing. Okay. Fertilization of the egg. From the vagina, the sperm move through the cervix. Right here. Remember what that is. Into the uterus. And then the fallopian tubes. Okay? Looking for this egg. Blanks. They fertilize. Once. The. Okay. Oh, weird. Okay, so this is the notes are a bit different here. From the vagina, sperm move through the cervix into the uterus and then the fallopian tube. So there isn't really a title in your notes here.
There's a blank that. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, see? Although hundreds of millions of sperms are released into the vagina, most will sadly die
Yeah, I got it right
while
down.
searching for the egg. You guessed die there in that blank?
No, I'm just like thankful I got it right down.
Oh, you thankful you got to write down die. Okay. That's a bit dark. But anyways, okay. Yes, many of the sperms will die. Okay. How many do you think actually get to the egg and fertilize the egg?
One.
One? Really?
There's only
One of
man
hundreds of
standing.
millions? Really?
And then they have to fight. They have a war.
They have no. It's no. This is not scientific. This is not sci-fi thriller Attack of the Killer Sperm on planet Ova. No, it's not.
Last man standing.
No. The sperms do not show their manhood by killing each other off. They just die. They die. It's a long hide and seek game, and they cannot handle it.
I thought it was
They
like.
just like die.
I thought it was like a
I'm
battle
sick and
royale.
tired of looking.
Last man standing.
I'm out of here. Cruel world. It's hot in here. I'm out. All right. Next page. After fertilization. Okay.
I thought they had like.
Okay, well, here we go. Here's the answer. One. No, this is once again. Why do I keep reading one? Once a sperm cell penetrates an egg. Yes, and yes, it's just one. Just one. Once a sperm cell penetrates an egg in the fallopian tube, the surface of the egg becomes impermeable, or basically like locked off, closed off. We're closed for business now. Okay. To any other sperm cells. All right. So one gets in there and fertilizes the egg. The egg now kind of hardens over. We have an impenetrable barrier. All the other sad sperm that made the long trip and didn't die are out of luck. There's only room for one sperm in this store. Okay? Then we're closing for the day. Forever. Yes? Question.
What would happen if like 2 or 3 sperm cells made at like the exact same time?
At the exact same time.
Then they literally.
Like 2 or 3 sperm cells at the exact same time.
Exact same time.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
triple.
Then planet Ova might explode. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That's not like
I am not prepared to answer that question.
Wait, is that how
That's if you're playing trios.
Once the sperm and egg come together, it is now called a zygote.
That sounds like my zodiac sign.
It sounds like a barnyard animal, I realize.
Travel to the wilderness.
I haven't seen zygote for a long time. It must have wandered away.
Is that
Or maybe it died, like all of the other sperm. No more zygote milk anymore.
I want
Boy, go get zygote. You know, that's what I think of when I See that word? We're gonna milk zygote.
All I can imagine is
Is that Russian, German, or
Yeah, I don't know. Russian, I don't know. It's kind of like a mix of Russian, German, Austrian, small baby. What is it? It sounds like what? It sounds like Russian and German mixed, really? Okay. Okay. Zygote. Zygote. Okay. So remember sort of the identification as we move through, right? Zygote, initial fertilization, embryo, okay, we start dividing, fetus. About 8 weeks, the name changes. I mean, technically, right? I mean, it's a baby from conception, is what you know, a lot of us believe. But anyways, that's a whole nother debate, right? That's a whole nother area. And we did talk about that earlier in the lesson. You know, life. What is life? When did it start? Did it start when the baby actually started breathing air, or did it start a few seconds earlier, or did it start a few months earlier? Did it start here when we called it a fetus? Did it start here when the initial zygote started dividing, or do we call the baby here when fertilization happens? I think if we keep going back, it gets tougher and tougher to say yes, no, yes, no. So anyways, this is, again, something that your worldview would dictate what you believe on this. But anyways, these are the technical terms which we're studying here today. And yeah, we are very thankful. You should be very thankful that this process exists. Okay, this looks like the same? Nope. Okay, it looks like the same slide. It is not the same slide. There are a couple more points here. Okay, so let's see. You have to turn the page in your notes. The zygote will travel through the fallopian tube to the uterus. Through the fallopian tube. I feel like, wow, what is going on? My Zoom is all messed up. Zoom. Look at that. Okay. It continues to divide into many different cells and develops into an embryo. So we're talking about cell division, many different cells, and develops into an embryo. And, guys, remember we talked about DNA the other day and how some genes are triggered during different stages of development, stuff like that. It is actually really, really cool and really, really amazing how, you know, one single cell with all of the genetic information required to build you and me, and how all of these different cells are made. That's a little bit tough for, I guess, random evolution to explain how the different cells that would make the different systems and the different parts would be triggered at just the right time for development to happen. And as they keep growing, some, you know, production is turned on, some is turned off, and all of this gets kind of put together pretty amazingly. So as the cells divide, the program kind of changes according to the stage of development. It's pretty neat. All right. Any questions here so far?
No.
Okay. Where's my Zoom? Why does this keep... Oh, my goodness. Okay. Implantation. Okay, so let's talk about implantation, what happens after fertilization. Now, the fertilized egg, the embryo, it's called an embryo now, and it gets into the uterus and implants. So implantation. Fertilized eggs are implanted into the thick walls of the uterus. Zygote grows into an embryo. The embryo gets air and nutrients through the umbilical cord. Oh, okay. It doesn't breathe air, but does it get air? Oh, it says it gets air.
Let's go.
That's
boys.
interesting. Okay. So there would be some gases that would come through the umbilical cord apparently as well. So the embryo, where is that one? Embryo gets air and nutrients through the umbilical cord. Not the umbilical cord, it's the umbilical cord. Once pregnant, progesterone levels stay high in the mom. So progesterone levels stay very high once the mother is pregnant. Mom's uterus grows with the baby. Okay, so the uterus in that picture obviously is going to grow, and we see a pregnant woman here. We've got baby inside. Everything obviously is gotten quite a bit bigger in there. Okay. Mom's uterus grows. There we go. All right, let's talk about the developing baby here. The fetus. Once the developing embryo has been implanted for approximately 8 or 9 weeks, it is referred to as a fetus. So in medical technical terms, that's a fetus. Once the fetus has developed for 9 months, it's ready to leave the support and safety, of the mother's uterus and enter the outside world, the big, bad outside world.
Cooked, it's ready to leave the oven.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Okay, so embryo grows. So around 40 weeks is full term, full expected term, and that's about 9 months. So, yeah.
What if it comes out early?
Well, yeah, if the baby comes out too early, there are complications happen. Yeah, I mean, think about this. You don't have much developed here, right? Around here or here. More things are developing, all these important systems. The baby's ready to come out, at full term. The lungs are ready to breathe air, the other systems, the brain's functioning, heart's great, it's ready to process all this oxygen now, and muscles ready to move, and blah, blah, blah. So there's, ready, okay? Ready. The timer's going off, it's ready to go here, okay? Okay. Now, if the baby comes out early, okay, the earlier the baby comes out, right, maybe some things aren't quite developed yet. And I will tell you a quick story about my firstborn son. My firstborn son was born right about here, the end of 35 weeks. So he was a little bit early. It was quite a shock to us. It was our first child, so we didn't really know what to expect. So we went to the hospital early, and of course he was born almost 6 weeks premature. So at 6 weeks premature, some babies will have to stay in the hospital for a little while and maybe get some help with some certain things. But for him, his lungs were not quite fully developed, ready to fully process air and to deliver oxygen throughout his body. So he had to stay in NICU for a number of weeks. And throughout that process, because his lungs weren't ready to go yet, the muscles were working and the heart was needing oxygen, so his lungs were pumping, and they kind of got going so fast that they basically split. They broke there was a hole in his lungs, and this air that was coming in was kind of getting into his chest cavity. It's called a pneumothorax, is what it's called. So the first night this happened is they were monitoring his levels and his breathing and stuff like that. And I remember going to see him through the window in NICU the first night about 1:30 in the morning. I was up and went to see him, and I looked over at his bed in the corner there, and there was literally about 10 doctors and nurses surrounding his bed, and I couldn't see him. And I'm like, oh my, what is going on? Freaked me right out. So I quickly went in, washed my hands, and got my gown on and all this sort of stuff, and went over there, and I'm like, yeah, that's mine. What's going on? Tell me. So they told me what was going on, and they had to insert a tube. They had to cut his chest open there and insert a tube, and to clean things up, and they had to fix things. And so it was a matter of they intubated him as well, put a tube down his throat there so that they could deliver oxygen and help his breathing to kind of come down. And they gave him all sorts of steroids to quickly develop the muscles in his lungs, and that kind of healed over. He was in there for a few more weeks and turned out okay, but it was a little touch and go. So I mean, when you say, what happens if they're born early? Well, things can happen. They're not quite ready to be outside here yet. So ideally, he would have been in mom developing those lungs and everything else for another 5 more weeks. So he was ready to go.
Did it cause anything in the
An average pregnancy, that's the gestational period, is 9 months long. 9, yep, 9 months long. Okay.
That's a long time.
Babies can survive if they're born earlier, but they may have complications due to premature, and we just kind of had a little side discussion about that. So if the body's not ready to be born, if things aren't fully developed, then there may be some complication. So this baby here is obviously pretty small, right? My son, as I mentioned, was born premature. He was 4 pounds 11 ounces when he was born, so pretty small. I remember he was like in this little incubator almost, and I could like put my hands through the sleeves, and like kind of touch him, but he was like all hooked up to all these wires and tubes and stuff. And I remember I had my hand on his head just like this. I was like basically praying for him for a long time, and I had my hand on his head. And then I pulled my hand away from his head, and literally I looked on his head, and it's like I had like grooves of my fingers, where my fingers were like on his head, and like, uh-oh, I think I just wrecked him. Yeah, they're pretty malleable when they come out. You got to be careful. Yes, that's why he's taller than me, because I just stretched him a little bit when no one was looking.
Well, the
Yeah,
doctors turn around.
it's just gonna say like, come on, boy,
Get bigger.
you can do this. Okay.
The doctors turn around and pray on you.
What are okay? Premature. That's your. There's your blank there.
Why you had it.
So we're gonna stop the first section here of this lesson. We'll talk about trimesters here when we come back. So there's part 1.